the furry fandom, a group of wild and wacky people who are way too obsessed with animals that can talk, and even worse, wear pants. You know, like that Lucario guy. They're not really your average group of fans in most people's eyes. They've got creativity, artwork, and literature, but also more fursuits in a zoo on Halloween. But in the mystical land of 2010, furries transformed from, you know, common degenerates to what the internet described as a hive-minded degenerates, proudly flaunting their extravagant mascot costumes and being weird, leaving most other degenerates behind. It was a fierce competition of that time of who could be the most fucking scum on the internet. And when Konami, the famous people who made this funny card game called yugioh.com, saw this group of non-exploited degenerates, they had to put something in their card game to exploit them. Especially since this card game is normally about scantily hot anime women. What did they do? Obviously, they put a bunch of furry mercenaries in the game. What happened to Fur Hire? Fur Hire was released in May 2018. But you wouldn't know that because the same set that came out with Sky Striker was released. And everyone, of course, jumped to that deck instead, and the rest is history. That's kind of why you're here. But like, there's not really much for me to discuss yet. But let's go. Unlike the Math Mech video, we really don't have a best way to describe the era before their true relevant playability, other than the 2018 to 2023 era, which will microrize that sentence down to the pre-com era. From 2018 to 2019, Toss was just around. Sky Striker was released in the same set as the initial set for Fur Hire, but it really had nothing going for it to really push it into even relevancy against Sky Striker. There really wasn't much besides a main deck monster negate or a main deck spell and trap negate, which didn't help a lot. Sure, we had Beat, a good searcher, Dampa, a good pop for face-up cards, and Raphael, which was a monster negate, but the original wave support didn't have enough during this horrible format for most decks. But during this era, they did get Fulgo and Philo, but a Link 3 and a Monster Reborn on a monster, a deck does not make. Do keep both these guys in mind. They do come up in the future. 2020 to 2022 was COVID, and the COVID format was super cool because it was just Calamity and then Zodiac and then just Tier Elements and everything else. God, I hated COVID formats. They were so boring. That was like, it was shocking how like popular the game was during this time. But we did get a nice little extra piece to Fur Hire's puzzle at the time of this, called Rookie Fur Hire. This spell card is really useful for the deck because you tribute a monster for a cost to special summon a Fur Hire name with a level above or below the monster you tributed. Once again, keep this card up in mind. I know I've been saying that a lot so far, but you really don't hear this a lot out of me without reason. There's nothing to talk about yet. And during the final wave of tier elements, we got Donner and Rex, a Link 2, whose main generic effect is to target a Fur Hire you control and a monster you controls and pop them both. But it also has the secondary effect of tributing a monster you control to special summon a Fur Hire from either your grave or your hand. If you tribute a Link, you also get to summon a second one afterward. Rex on summon lets you add a Fur Hire spell trap to the hand. I don't know, that probably can come up in handy at some point. But with everything all finally clashed together, we're now at the tail end of December. What better way to talk about Fur Hire than get to the deck that really showed them off? Bystial Fur Hire. First seen December 2022. Deck type, Link combo. Big names for this deck: Rex, Freight for Hire, Bystial Magnamut, and Big Arrow Girl. Unexpectedly at the time, Bystials were a surprisingly very competent side engine to most decks, providing a bonus body for their plays as well as a fantastic interaction for tier elements. Fur Hire was no different to this all. Even though it never really finished higher than regional situations, it did confidently top those events. Basic strategy was just to say,
but he's a fucking imbecile, you absolute buffoon. What you have there is not clips. These are mags. They're mags, not clips, you absolute fucking dummy. The same way that this is also a mag.
And then explode 15 links on the board like you just climax looking at Donner.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, like most decks that revolved around Bystials, this deck immediately fell off as soon as they finally banned tier limits from the meta, you know, like 6 months later. And you think, like most decks at the time, this is where Fur Hire would have just collapsed and moved on. We all would just forget about all the support and just call it a day. But no, this wasn't the end of Fur Hire. In fact, Runic Fur Hire. First seen March 2023. Deck type, control. Big names for this deck: Donner, Dagger for Hire, Fulgo, Justice for Hire, and Joshua Schmidt's favorite archetype. Runic has been used previously, but problematic thing about it was that Naturia was around, and it was always thought to be the best choice for anything involving Runic. That was until their trap card was banned. Well, not banned, limited, but you know what I mean. At which point For Hire assumed complete dominant control over Runic piles. We won't talk about the modern Bystial Runic file we saw. Primary build for Runic Fur Hire though was really helpful because it addressed the two decks' separate angles of problems. Thanks to Fulgo, Runic's had a separate method to draw 3, and thanks to the Runic engine, For Hire now had an easy way to actually search out most of its playmakers, giving you an easy way into Rex while also setting up your combos with Rookie. Now that we have Runics, For Hire can play through interaction without using the normal summon, and on top of that, we also get free material to use with Rookie For Hire, which gave us more interaction to keep going. Both Hugin and Rex are level 2 monsters, which means that by plussing off with Rookie For Hire, contributing those guys, you either clear the EMZ by using Hugin, or putting Rex in the grave to initiate its engrave effect. We didn't talk about this earlier. In addition to the back row search, Rex also has a secondary effect that really assists with grind games that activates while it's in the grave. If it's in the graveyard, you can banish it during the main phase to target a For Hire card in the grave, and either special summon it or add it back to your hand. This gives For Hires an amazing recoverability option that isn't tied to Philo, making Philo kind of irrelevant unless you're going game 3 and just need something to help with your grind more. On top of that, Donner helped keep Beat online as long as she resolves, giving you access to Rafal, extremely easy thing getting to add off on top of your deck, which Rafal does, which then lets you use the leftover 3 materials on your field to create Fulgo, giving you the access to your draw 3 because of none of the monsters that you're using having a matching type to Donpa, letting Fulgo special summon it from your deck. Thanks are due to the furry bait's unexpected surge in popularity and affordable cost even before the 10s released last year. It has evolved into an innovative powerhouse that can be seen almost everywhere, even outside the open elo continent of Europe. This deck was everywhere from WCQ 2023 to YCS London, setting up Fulgo and executing Runic combos, while also having a bit of splash of Sprite in there in some certain builds. But we're already at modern day. Yeah, as I said earlier, aside from recently in March 2023, there's not a lot to talk about with For Hire. Sure, there was a time in Duel Links where the deck was tier 0, but that was going up against things like Neos and Red Eyes. I don't count that as an interesting format. I call that GX circle jerks. Instead of wishing for love for the deck, I think it's a good idea to instead have a deck that appears on this show and on a good note. I think this deck is not just a relic of its past, like starting to lean out. I think it's at the start of growing. Would I like some more support for this deck? Absolutely. I think giving it another spell card to activate its combos would be very helpful, but I will give my hopes up, and Runix is a very good secondary engine as it is right now. But I've run my time. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. I don't know, comment what you want me to talk about next. I've got a whole month to do this now, but until then, I'm gonna go play Amoris on Steam. See ya.